Hey everyone, this is Kelsey Jones, Executive Editor at Search Engine Journal, and I'm joined here today by Dave Snyder, CEO of CopyPress. Dave, thanks for joining me.
No problem.
I know today we want to talk a little bit about scaling content because you mentioned that you have clients like Home Depot where you have to make tens of thousands of pages of content, and a lot of companies don't really know how to scale. So what are some key things to remember?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that we're seeing right now is that big companies are getting into this content marketing thing, but then it has to go beyond, oh, we're just going to start a blog or we're going to put copy on a website
just
somewhere.
To have it.
Yeah. And so it comes down to creating, the strategy and then producing for the strategy. So the big problem that they have is creating a team to fulfill. So it goes beyond copywriters as well. So if we want to create a great campaign, we should have some infographics involved and some illustrations. How about some pictures and some images? All of those things come into play. And so what they then have a hard time with, because most big companies don't have all of these producers, is how do we get all of these producers to create content, but then also make sure that a style guide is actually followed with it as well. And so we've created a workflow that we think works really well, where we really focus on the style guide to begin with, and then we begin hiring elements of the team to roll out the content process over time. And that way you can roll out as much content as you want. It's sticking with your singular focus, your KPI you're trying to reach, your overall voice for your company, and all those elements. Too many people right now are trying to approach it as, we need a lot of stuff, so let's just go hire a bunch of people. And that's going to work.
It'll get done.
And that's going to work somehow, and it's going to be good. And I think more and more people are saying, all right, strategy first, then style guide second. Now let's build a really concrete team. And if I have one piece of advice for big companies, it's be willing to pay your producers correctly. The days of penny a word content, the days of $200, $300 infographics, those things exist, but you get what you pay for. And so I think that's a great mentality I'm starting to see change is, hey, let's go out and find a really good DIY writer to write about home improvements and be willing to pay them a premium for their expertise and their name behind it.
Yeah, it really makes a difference. I mean, the price point is a good way to tell whether or not you're going to get a good quality for sure.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason people are willing to work for a penny a word. I mean, there's two reasons. One is that they're new and they're being taken advantage of and say, okay, I'm willing to do this. The other one is that they can't find work for more. But we're seeing the mentality change, and it's been changing over the last 2 to 3 years where people are willing to pay for premium content. I think we're going to see more of that. I think we're going to see these individual content producers become more empowered over time as well.
That's good.
Such as yourself, right? Like you have a voice in the internet marketing business, and you're able to utilize that voice to make yourself a real living.
Yeah, I agree. So whenever you talked about doing a process, kind of a checklist, are there checks and balances with that? So do you have people go through and do QA of all the content?
And that's what's really different about us, is why we're not a true marketplace, so to speak, because when you come to us, we create, the first part of it's creating that style guide with information. We do like a client brief style guide, and then when the content comes back, an editor checks it, and then there's another level of QA and a third level of QA to make sure that quality's there. Because again, our end client, if they're getting all this copy, they might be one person internally. They don't have the time to sift through and find mistakes and edit mistakes. And that's really the difference between us and most companies, and where I think most companies are looking for a lot of help now. I think services that offer just purely QA are services that will start popping up pretty soon as well.
Yeah, I hadn't even thought about offering QA as just a standalone service, but I think it's something that falls through the cracks. And I know at SCJ, one of the things that we've done in the past 2 years is really hunkered down with our process of checking for grammar and spelling, because that's the first thing people point out, because it seems like, especially with a big brand or a big publisher, that people are going to look for the mistakes and be more willing to point them out. So it's really important for companies to have that.
I think one of the things people don't do as well is certify, train people, right? So you bring on a person and be like, oh, you're an editor, and then they don't have these basic grammar and spelling skills. Right? Or we're going to bring on this writer who's an expert in this topic, and then all of a sudden they don't have the skill set that you need for an expert in that topic. You're kind of like throwing darts against the board. So what we've done is we've developed a certification system where we're actually certifying these people ahead of time to be like, hey, no, this guy actually knows how you should use commas, right? Not like a salt shaker with commas everywhere. And that makes a big difference, right? You're doing a lot of that work up front, and that way you're qualifying, hey, I should pay them a premium because they're actually qualified to do this.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then when it comes to growing content, do you think it's helpful to have a project manager to kind of handle, if you have a big group of writers, to kind of manage everything, or how does that work?
You need to have somebody who's on a single discipline, so copy person, this image person, a photographer that can actually speak to these people, a video person, and then you need a single point of contact that's actually managing those disciplinary individuals, right? Somebody who understands the whole campaign and how things integrate together, timeline, assessment, all of that. I think when you're dealing with huge campaigns that are multifaceted, you have to have that individual. And sometimes, again, that person can't be within the organization, right? If you're just a single marketing person, there's no time to manage that.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to have someone not affiliated with the actual creation checking everything.
Yep, for sure.
So, okay, well, this was a lot of great tips. Before we go, is there any other, tips you want to give to big brands that are looking to scale their content?
Yeah, I think starting off KPIs first is the biggest thing I'm still seeing people not do. It's kind of like, I've been given this budget allocation for content marketing, so let's go do it. And it's no, all right, we've been given this budget allocation, but what are we being expected to produce from this? Then what copy strategies can we create, or different content strategies can we create to hit that KPI, create a strategy and a plan first, and then build off of that. Then you'll be guaranteed to actually have success with it, where when you just kind of approach it like, hey, what can we do with this budget? You're going to end up with a lot of people telling you to do a lot of stuff just to spend money that's not going to actually yield an ROI.
Yeah, really good point. So again, Dave Snyder, a CEO of CopyPress, and Kelsey Jones, Search Engine Journal. This is Kelsey Jones, Executive Editor of Search Engine Journal, and I'm here today with Guy Kawasaki, Chief Evangelist of Canva. Guy, thanks so much for joining us. I know you did a keynote today at PubCon about personal branding and social media.
Conferences I attended, the speakers were fantastic. The weather here has been amazing. I mean, this location, the hotel.
The thing I'm really liking about the SEJ Summit is the 3 takeaways structure.
Yes.
I'm leaving with way more. I
also like the single session format for conferences.
I agreed to be a speaker here because I think above all else, the quality of people who attend the meeting. There's something to be said about the fact that you can't just pay to come here. It's by invitation only.
What I've really liked about the speakers is that it's been very well-rounded. We focused on content generation ideas.